Hello, everybody. I am one of your hosts, Scott, coming to you today from Toronto.
And I'm probably one of your other hosts because I'm not sure if I'm on the right podcast. But I'm Andy, and I'm coming to you from the United Kingdom.
Well,
what
Andy,
was all that, Scott?
That was my attempt to get us into the Olympic spirit.
Oh, well played, well played. Yeah.
Are you an Olympian? Are you an Olympic?
Well, I was recently over in Paris,
actually.
actually. So I got to go and see a lot of the setup that they've done in Paris for the Olympics now. So I was there recently. It was very impressive, and it was nice to be there ahead of all of the crowds and everybody else turning up. But they seem to have done a good job. So I think it's going to be a good Olympics. They've set up some fantastic stages in some really good places around the city. With some great views and sort of iconic locations. So I think that's going to be good. And even if you're not into the sport, I think it will still be a good visual experience. I enjoy watching national sporting events, and I'm not, like, for example, I'm not so much into football, but recently there was the European Championships and England made it to the final. They didn't win. Nobody expected them to.
It really far.
They made it to the final, which is not bad. So.
Yeah. Well, the Olympics is usually always on the TV here. I sort of knew it was coming, but I don't sort of like anticipate it as much as the rest of my family does. And I think when it's the Winter Olympics, it's a different story. I get, of course, more into it. I think Canada typically has a little bit more success there, but definitely we have some strong contenders in the Summer Olympics as well. So anyway, to the best team. We'll see how it all comes in a couple of weeks.
That's right. I think we might have to claim some of your medals as well if we don't get so well on our own. the Queen's still on your money, so we're claiming any victories that you get.
Not anymore. We've already changed it to the King.
Have you? God, yeah. We're still stuck with the Queen at the moment.
Yeah, there you go. Well, if you didn't know, you are listening to the Tea and Timbits podcast, Global Perspectives on Business Development to help you prosper. Always good to see you as ever, Andy. We are going to do a little series this month, in the month of August, in the waning days of the summer, on just the essence of being an entrepreneur and starting new things and starting new ideas. I think it's kind of apt to do it at this time of year. I always think of September as sort of the start of a new year. The end of the summer, it's this, fourth quarter business is around the corner. Kids are back to school. It's definitely this mental milestone as well. And so I think, as you're listening to this through the month of August and sort of giving yourself a little bit more space to consider new ideas, it might be an appropriate topic.
This series is on entrepreneurship or starting your own business, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
You good with that?
I'm fine. Just want to make sure I'm at the right podcast still.
Okay, yeah. So before we get into that, any reflections you'd like to share?
I do have a small story which is kind of related, and I'll explain why towards the end. But it's a simple story, and it's one that is quite common in what I've been seeing fairly recently. And this one relates to a small but up and coming punk band who have a dedicated following, and they have some quite fun merch. The problem is that their merchandise is the same merchandise when they go to all of their shows. And as I say, they've got quite a dedicated following, but that following tends to be the same people who are going to the same gigs, and therefore they were ending up with a lot of merch leftovers. And coming up to the end of the sort of touring season, they have a lot. And I didn't really know what to do. And then they went into the next year, so this year, with that same merch that they had left over from last year, and just reprinted some of those old designs. And of course, they're not selling, or they weren't selling. And so what they did is they came up with an idea to have a competition so a social media competition, and they got a designer to come up with like 10 different designs, I think it was, for new T-shirts and new merch items, and then getting the fans to vote on those 4 like final designs that they would have. And because the audience and their fans were involved in choosing and getting to pick those final designs, the next gigs have been like chock full of fans wanting to get those T-shirts, because of course they're being run on a limited number, etc., and they feel that they're part of making it. And the reason I wanted to sell that story is that the only reason that turned around and that they didn't just keep trying to take the same merch to the same gigs over and over again is that they changed from this sort of scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset. And by having that abundant mindset and going, oh, okay, there are greater things out there. There's greater opportunities. We can do something different. We can, our audience doesn't have to be finite, and the opportunities don't need to be limited. And so going into it with an abundant mindset is exactly what we should be talking about when we're going into a new business startup.
No, I love it. It's just sort of thinking about new ideas and how to bring them forward, and whether or not you even can. So as we get into this conversation, sort of thinking forward to what you would like to share as we get into the substance of this topic, what do you hope people will take away from our conversation?
Well, I think the important thing is to start at the beginning and to understand that not only when you have an idea and a key audience for that idea, that is the only way to go.
Yeah.
There is opportunity outside of where you may immediately or initially see that, and to prepare for that from the beginning.
Yeah. Okay.
Rather than waiting until that core audience has dried up.
And I think that it's important to just kind of put this conversation in context for your situation. So not everybody is a classic entrepreneur starting a business. And I know we say this point, often, but I think in everybody's role, the way that they contribute, there's a chance to be an entrepreneur, and you can absolutely think of yourself as sort of starting new things, and whether it's a new project or a new initiative or just a new habit for yourself, there's hopefully some parallels here as well. So I was looking forward to talking about this because it's a big part of the kind of work that I do, is helping businesses advance new ideas and new initiatives. And so probably on a monthly basis, I have somebody in my network reach out and say, hey, I've got this idea. And do you think we could grab coffee, grab lunch, grab a drink, and I'd love to tell you about it and just see what you think. And so I always oblige, because I love talking to people about their ideas and new businesses and ventures and whatnot. And I would say that it's quite the common trap. The thing I'm amazed I see so often is a real enthusiasm and excitement for the idea itself. And isn't this, and they want you to get excited about the idea and the thing. So I've actually kind of learned to reflect that, so that you kind of, sure, I'm here to support you and workshop this. So let me start from a place of support and confidence and say, oh yeah, that I can see why you got excited and why this is a fun idea. And when I endorse it from that perspective with that kind of energy, usually they're like, okay, great. Well, conversation done. And they just wanted that kind of validation. And I'm not saying it's totally insincere, but if it's a bad idea, I'll tell them. But I'm alarmed at, or I'm always amazed at how often that's the end of the conversation, of the thinking. I've got a colleague of mine who has reached out very recently about a new venture, has recently finished one, exited one, and looking to kind of stay in the same space. It's a familiar industry, but wants to take a slightly different path in the road. And so I think what's cool about that situation as a contrast and example here is already aware of the market, the need, the opportunity, sees that if I could get into equipment repair in this space, that's the pain that I was feeling. And so it's not quite as flashy and sexy as like I've got this new app or I've got this new product that or this, and so he's come forward to say, well, what do I need to know about how to position this, how to talk about it? How can I figure out who my competitors are going to be? What should I say or do differently? If I do this, am I correct that there is even space in the market for this kind of thing? And he knows that we have some tools and ways of evaluating this kind of stuff from a digital perspective. So I've been doing a little bit of that research and SEO analysis and things like that to give him some sort of validation of competitive space.
Yeah, but I mean that everything you said there is that exact journey that most successful entrepreneurs do go on in order to turn their idea into something successful. It's usually it sort of starts with that, getting clarity of the vision and being able to explain, what problem is it solving and what makes the idea unique. But then they often stop at that point and then just go, yeah, because it solves that problem. And because I can't see anyone else doing it, that's it. It's going to be a big success, and therefore they just run out to the market and start, trying to sell it, and sometimes get some success, but without necessarily a structure or a format or a clear value proposition for the market or for their target audience, and so I think it's very important as well is that there is a compelling value proposition that's in there, and just being clear about why someone should care about your product or service, not just because it solves a problem for them, but what difference is it going to make in their lives? What is the outcome they're going to expect to see as a result of embracing your product or service over what is already existing in the market. And then understanding who are the competitors out there, what are the trends in the market, and I know it's cliched, but it does work, doing that SWOT analysis and understanding the market in that way, following on by then, I don't know, who is it? It's Donald Miller, wasn't it, who did the building a story brand. And I think if you can do that at the early stages,
absolutely,
that's going to give you that whole framework that you need to take it to the next phase of actually building, the foundation for your successful business.
Absolutely. I've also then seen people sort of get that feedback and then overcorrect. And so they then go, oh, well, and then all they do is spend time talking about it. And every time an objection or a point of friction gets raised, they just kind of go, all right, yeah, I guess there are challenges and never mind. And I think that is, sort of an equally likely trap or pitfall to be aware of. And, if you've got a good idea and you get critical feedback, it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It just means some other people have pointed out some hazards you might encounter along the way, and you're better prepared for it at that point to have a response when you actually do encounter those hazards.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? If you go and talk to the market and do that market research, and the market say to you, that will never work, or that's a terrible idea, ask them why. Because then they're going to tell you what you need to do to improve your product so that it's applied to the market. Because the next people you then talk to is you present your product and go, and some of the reasons that this hasn't worked for other people is because of this. And this is how we've addressed that. So it's actually a tool, that negative feedback, that negativity towards your product or your service that you're offering isn't bad things. It's good things, because it allows you to develop that minimum viable product that you can then embrace and launch and take to the market and then build on.
So I guess this is actually taking us sort of perfectly to sort of a culmination of what we've been talking about. So at the risk of summarizing already, let me attempt it, because we've talked about sort of the classic pitfalls and the classic issues of just presenting the idea and thinking that it alone is going to sensationalize and get people excited and sell itself. And then as you have these conversations and you vet your idea, if you've taken that approach, fine, that's okay. But just internalize the feedback you get from the first conversation you have as many conversations as you can, as you think are helpful. And then the next time you have the conversation, use the previous ones to build on that, and then reorganize the way you're delivering the information. If you haven't sort of done that from the get-go, if you've listened to this podcast before you've done all of this, then you're going to be even more prepared to find something.
Exactly.
But start with the story of the challenge that you, or the opportunity that you identified, and build a little bit of a narrative around that. What is the problem and why is it painful, and wouldn't it suck to be in this situation? Or the converse is, there isn't really an opportunity, but I can see that if we brought this, people's lives would be improved in this way, and they don't really know they need that or would benefit from that, but as soon as they see it, they're going to want it. And you have to kind of get that initial market demand story established, then move into, and so I have an idea and it's going to work like this, and it's going to be this sensational. And then, I know there's going to be these kinds of hurdles and pitfalls and obstacles. So and they are such, and maybe we could overcome them, but don't get too carried away. I mean, unless you're doing a formal investor pitch or something like that. And then you'll be better prepared to get fresh ideas, real, genuine feedback, and you'll be able to advance your idea.
I completely agree. I think the only thing I would add to that is when you're mapping out that story and you're doing that you also map out the customer's journey. Yes. What is their story, and how does your product fit into their life?
Right. Yeah. No, I like that. Very good. So do you think we checked the boxes for what we were hoping people would take away from this conversation?
I would certainly think so. I hope we got there in a good and clear way. Very good. As always, we both have a lot to share and a lot to talk about, and hopefully it's been clear to the listener of the journey they need to go on in order to take their customers on the right journey and make their business and the idea a success.
Very good. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode. This has been Tea and Timbits. If you want to find out more about us or get in touch, you can go to teaandtimbits.com. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Scott.